I have a new plugin from Waves. I am excited to show you guys. I know I'm always excited to show new stuff, but this one for doing Atmos stuff, this is, I think, a big deal and very cool. Before we jump in, first of all, thanks so much for coming by. I appreciate you checking out the video. There are some affiliate links below, including a link to Waves, where you can check this plugin out, which I highly suggest you do. Just spoiler alert, I highly suggest you check it out. There's also some templates down there that I sell and some other affiliate links. Clicking on that stuff helps support me, helps support the channel. I appreciate it. Now, let's look at this plugin. So the plugin is called the Immersive Wrapper. One of the big challenges we have when we're doing Atmos stuff or just immersive mixing, where we are working in an object-oriented environment, we lose our buses, or we lose our main mix bus at any rate. I mean, you could still employ buses in the mixing process if you want, but the main mix bus, like we would have in a stereo mix, it's gone. That main mix bus is our renderer for the immersive mix. In the case of Dolby Atmos, it's the Dolby Atmos renderer. And we don't have plugin slots on that. Like, we can't just add plugins to it. So it's a challenge to do sort of global processing to things. And if you're like me and doing two-bus compression or mix-bus compression, if that's been a big part of your workflow for a long time, getting that to work in Atmos is definitely a challenge. I know I've done other videos on this showing how I do it, and now Waves has a great solution for us to make this happen. In some ways, this immersive wrapper, it's really a way to sort of add a plugin to multiple outputs, buses, inputs, whatever you want to put it on. It's a way to add the same plugin across all of those things and to control it globally. So right off the bat, just to show you, I have an instance of the immersive wrapper on a 712 bed, basically, master track, and then I have it on another master that is for objects. And both of these are added to a global group up here. Now, if I adjust these, global controls, all the same. So right there, that's kind of a nice feature. But to me, this isn't really the main feature of this plugin. The main feature is the sidechain. So the immersive wrapper, basically, it has a sidechain that works across all the different plugins. Like all your instances, we have a sidechain that we can apply for everything. So what this allows us to do, basically, is we can put our bus compressor on our bed, and then we can put the same bus compressor on our objects, and we can have all of them react to each other. So let me show you how this all works. Now, to make all this work with the sidechain, you have to use a plugin that allows for an external sidechain. And you can see that if you go into load plugin, if we go into dynamics, anything in here that has like that SC in parentheses, that is something that we can use. So for example, like the CLA Mixdown plugin, that's not going to work in here because it doesn't allow for an external sidechain. I have the SSL bus compressor here because bus compression, I mean, that's what we're kind of getting towards with all of this. So I'm feeding a 1K tone into this right now, into the bed. And what we're going to see here is some different signals. So up here, these are all the channels available for that particular channel we're inserted on. So in this case, I'm on a 712 master. The gray bar on the left, that is the sidechain, okay? Gray on the left, sidechain. The center meter, that's going to be the amount of gain reduction we're doing. So if I crank this up, you can see that goes down. If I raise the threshold, that stops. The green bar on the right, that is the actual signal in that channel. Over here on the right, we have this internal sidechain mixer. So we have up to 6 different side chains we can put in here. These levels that are right here, this is how much of that side chain is being sent into the side chain of the selected channel. So as an example, if I click the surrounds here, if I adjust this level here, you're going to see that side chain right here, that starts to go down. On our fronts, it's not changing. So one application for this is maybe I don't want the LFE to compress at all. So I can just select the LFE, turn down the side chain, and now we're not going to feed that. So the way we get at this sidechain mixer is we have to click on these channels right here on the left. And I'm telling you this because this gets a little confusing, I think. This is something that confused me a lot. It took me a while to wrap my head around it. So one way to kind of get this in your head is when you want to adjust the sidechain going into the channel, click on the channel. Now, when we want to adjust what is feeding into this sidechain mixer to begin with, we click on the channel for the sidechain. So now if I click on this one, now we have a bunch of levels below each of these channels. That's how much of that signal in there is getting sent to the sidechain. Now, there are a couple of different ways to do the sidechain. This RMS mode is kind of like a summing mode. To me, it's the equivalent of if I routed everything to an aux send in Pro Tools, and then I use that as an external sidechain on a compressor. That's how this works. Now, there's also this max summing mode, and the way this was described is it is using the loudest channel in the whole sidechain to derive the sidechain from. So whatever that loudest is at any point in time, that's what's doing it. And I might be able to demonstrate this a little bit more later on. I got to see if the routing works so that it actually records. But with this sidechain monitor, if you are monitoring the sidechain and you toggle between those two, you can hear a clear difference. Personally, I prefer the RMS mode, but Waves, they say use the max mode. You should probably experiment and decide which one do you prefer. Now, the other thing in here is all of these levels, they default at neg 24. From the bit of experimenting I've done with that, that's too low. If you want to get a 1-to-1 kind of response, I've found through testing and measuring things, I have to put this all at 0. But here's the potential issue with this. It's the same reason we have a loudness limit for mixing in Atmos. If we are summing a lot of objects and a lot of different channels, up to 128, you're going to sum all of those signals together and you can run out of headroom in that internal sidechain. So keep that in mind. You might want to give yourself a little bit of headroom for some of that summing. The default neg 24, it's too low for me. I like pushing this up, maybe neg 6, 6.1. Quick way you can adjust all of this, just drag a box over all of it and you can change it. Right now, these levels don't link, though, globally. So over here on our object, that doesn't change there. So I have to pull those down to the same kind of place as those other ones to get the same performance out of that sidechain. If I want it all to work, I've got to get that all to match. Something to be aware of. This is stuff I'm still kind of wrapping my head around, but if you have bus compressor settings that you're used to using, you might have to play with the sidechain levels to get the performance to work the same. For me, I just find myself, I'm just tweaking thresholds a little bit more than I used to. And slowly working my way to finding what is the sweet spot for that threshold so that it all works. So, to summarize, if I want to control what's feeding a sidechain, I click on that channel. And if I want to send something to this sidechain channel 3 right now, I've clicked on that channel. I know I have signal in the center of the front because I've got that green signal right there. I can just take this, push it up. We see level showing up in there. Now, if I want this channel, maybe I don't want it to work off of that sidechain, so I can turn that down. And now I can turn that up, and now it's going to just work off of that channel. So we've got a bunch of flexibility in here and different ways of manipulating this. So a lot of cool stuff, but the sidechain mixer, this has been the biggest thing for me to wrap my head around. And once you get this figured out, I mean, it's just, you just use your plugin. I'm going to say it again because really it took me a long time to get my head around this. Clicking on the channel controls the sidechain amount for that channel. If we want to control what's feeding into the sidechain in the first place, we click on the sidechain mixer. And, you know, just to show you, so right now, if I click on, you know, I've got the sidechain feeding off of 1 and 3. If we look over here on our object where we have the immersive wrapper on there, you can see in that sidechain, we're getting signal level. This is 2 different channels and we're feeding across, which is awesome to me. Let's look at a little bit more that we can do with this in here. So with the sidechain here, for example, and the grouping, we have the ability to sort of tweak the compression that's going on in different parts of our mix, on different objects, different bed channels, bus channels, whatever we have this inserted on, we can make adjustments. An example of this might be maybe we're doing a little more compression in the front and our drums are there and they're hitting, but maybe it's making something in the back pump too much. We can go into just those rear channels and adjust things. The other thing we can do, we can go into these and we can adjust the amount of sidechain that's feeding those. Then there is this global kind of adjustment up here. And what that will do is it will adjust between how much is the compressor looking at the sidechain and how much is it looking at just what's coming in on that channel. And just as an example, let's put a serious amount of compression on here. Now, if I start taking this down, you can see we've still got a lot of gain reduction on the center, but we're not doing any gain reduction on those other channels. So it's just another way to kind of weight our compression and to really adjust things and fine tune it all. Enough of theory though. Let's go throw this on a mix and see what happens. I have a mix here that I've got together and I've got the immersive wrapper inserted. One of the things I've liked using this on, which is a little different for me, is I've actually been putting this on master faders. I don't typically use a lot of master faders, but in this application, this has been the way I have liked using it the most. In my Atmos music mixes in general, I have a master fader set up for everything that I could possibly use. So in this case, you can see I've got 712 Bedmaster, and then I have stereo objects for everything else. The reason I've always had these in here pretty much is, for me, it's been a good way to get things within spec. In general, the closer you can get without doing any of this, the better you are. But a lot of times I found I'm usually, I'm within a dB or two of being in spec. I take all of these masters, I assign them to a VCA, and then I can just adjust everything overall. So if I'm a dB off, maybe I'm a dB too loud, I can just pull down those faders a dB and everything's good. Now, it's not quite as simple to use that with the Immersive Wrapper because of one of the quirks of how Pro Tools works. All of the plugins you insert on a master fader in Pro Tools, they are all post-fade. So if I turn all of those masters down, I am effectively raising the threshold in any compressor on there because I'm lowering the amount of signal that's going into the compressor. So just something to keep in mind. It's not a huge deal for me, but if you follow this kind of workflow, just something to kind of keep in mind. So I have this Immersive Wrapper inserted on everything I'm using. The way I figured out what am I actually using in the session, if I pull up the renderer, I can see all of the objects that I have things assigned to. And it's primarily some object bed stuff here to do height channels and hit the height channels. I mean, that's mainly what is going on in this session, but I can see I'm going 11 through 20, and then I've got something on 33. So I've gone over here, 11 through 20, I inserted the Immersive Wrapper, and then I put one on 33 and 34. All of these different instances, they're all part of this global group, so I can adjust just the bus, and everything works. So let me play back a little bit and just show you. I've got two instances pulled up here for you to see. The one on the left, this is on a pair of objects. The one on the right, this is on our bed channel. I should probably feed the binaural today, but we're just going to listen to the stereo direct fold down to make things easier so you don't have to dig out headphones if you want. So here we go. So pretty cool. You can just see from this, both compressors, they're doing the same thing. It's all talking to each other. It's very cool. Now I want to show you the sidechain. What is the difference between these different sidechain modes? And the easiest way to show you this is I've just inserted a mono instance of this Immersive Wrapper on a snare drum, and I'm going to flip back and forth. We're just listening to the sidechain right now. So I'll flip back and forth between the RMS and the max. And then you can kind of hear how that max version changes things. So the max version of that sidechain summing mode, it's really focusing more on the peaks of things and not as much on the whole signal. So just something to keep in mind. Personally, I kind of prefer that RMS method, but your mileage may vary. I would say try them both and figure out what works for you. One thing I will say, when it comes to mixing in Atmos, I don't feel like I like as much bus compression as I would if I'm only mixing in stereo. It's just a personal taste thing. If I need more compression because I'm going to fold something down into stereo and that stereo, it just feels like it needs to compress a little more, I'll do it on the fold down and then spit that out rather than try and compress the Atmos more, because the Atmos, it just feels better to me if it's not as compressed in this way. Now, I'm just showing this as like a mix bus compressor, but you could basically create your own drum bus sort of this way. Like put your Immersive Wrapper on all of your drum channels, group them together, set the side chain for those drums, and now you've sort of created a drum bus without having a drum bus. So now you can have your drum bus, send those drum channels out to objects, fly them around the room for drum fills if you want. Have fun. It's just another way of doing things. So Immersive Wrapper. This is a cool plugin. Go check it out. Download the demo. Let me know. How's it working for you? What are you using it on? Are there some cool applications that you're finding that go beyond just putting it on like a mix bus application? What are you liking it for? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. I will talk to you soon.